very natural, I imagine, right? With the light in your face and the camera right here. Super at ease.
I'm David Hanson. I'm on the board of the Friends of the Marie Drake Planetarium. I do presentations at the planetarium. I help with the technical aspects. And additionally, I'm an amateur astronomer. I do astrophotography. So I've been interested in space and the stars for a long time.
My name is Rosemary Walling. I'm also a volunteer here at the planetarium and a board member of our nonprofit. I also teach sometimes at the university, so I'm an adjunct professor of astronomy at the University of Alaska Southeast in Sitka, teaching distance. So I moved to Juneau in 2003, and at that point the planetarium here was being run by volunteers. And occasionally I was teaching in Juneau at the time at the university, and so I might bring a classroom down here. And over time I started to do a few shows with the planetarium. The shows were always run by volunteers and they're offered freely to the community. And before we got a new system here, a digital system, most of our shows would be a night sky tour using the Spitz Starball behind us, followed by some discussion or presentation about something going on or something in the sky. And over time, I got more and more involved, and so now I'm one of the more active members here.
And I moved to Juneau in 2017, and before I came, I was just doing a little bit of research. At that point, I was very much into my astrophotography, where I was previously. So I was amazed to see that Juneau, a small town like Juneau, had a planetarium. So that piqued my interest even before I came here. Once I did come here, I started attending the shows and was really kind of eager to participate. So I met with the volunteers, started helping out, just setting up chairs and regular kind of volunteer stuff, and then did a presentation on astrophotography, so that was very well received, and then kind of was adopted onto the board, and have started taking a little bit stronger role.
So Juneau got the planetarium here in 1967. It's a 30-foot dome, and at the time these were popping up all over the country. But in terms of Alaska, we still have the second largest dome in the state. There's 3 permanent domes, 2 in Anchorage, and one's run by the university there, and the other one is a little bit smaller than this one. So it's really impressive to have this capability in Juneau. As Dave said, not every town would have this. And the other thing that's nice about it is the community can control it, can decide how to use it. And with the new system we have, there's just all sorts of possibilities for us in terms of things that we can do, creative things, things with astronomy. It's really unlimited.
So the planetarium was initially built, like Rosemary says, in the 60s. It was during the time of the space race. So there was a program to increase participation in science and in engineering. And so there was funding for planetariums like this all across the country in schools. And over time, some of those have dropped off the map. I think a lot of them have dropped off the map. But initially things were funded with not only the equipment, but the staffing to have a full-time planetarium operator. And so this planetarium fell into disuse for a few years and ended up kind of being a storage area. And that's when the nonprofit group was established to sort of revive it and bring it back as a community resource. And now we're trying to take it full circle, where we're starting to work with the school district. Obviously, we're in a school district facility, but to work with the teachers in the curriculum planning and to bring the planetarium back into the part of the classroom.
You know, when I was growing up, space was everything, and things were happening frequently, so that, you know, I think Voyager One was launched maybe a couple of weeks after Voyager Two, but Voyager One in September of 1977, maybe, and 2 years later it was at Saturn, at Jupiter, I mean, and then 1 year after that it was at Saturn. So it was just, you know, something was going on all the time. And at the same time, we had the space shuttle going up to the space station and back. And so it was just it was a time of real optimism, I think. Well, I think they went for a diverse group of people, not all scientists and not all humanities experts, but tried to get all sorts of feedback as to what was important as a message. And ultimately, you know, music, there were images, there was the spoken word, and there were natural sounds on the golden record. And it's supposed to last a few billion years. So it's going to go, I don't know how far out it'll go in 2 billion years, but it's really far. And the message is really for us, because there's not one alien that's likely to find it, because space is pretty big. But there's a lot of people on Earth who know what the message is that was sent at the time. And so that was the real power of the record itself, I think, was the assembling it and the seeing it going into space and then eventually leaving our solar system. Something might find it. I don't want to be too pessimistic about that, but space is really big.
Yeah, I think it was a real challenge to curate that record. How do you decide, you know, what elements of humanity at large to include? Obviously, it's being launched by a Western space agency, but I think they did do a really good job of reaching across cultures and taking a very broad view of a representation of humanity.
I wish I could remember the quote that was written there from the president at the time, who was President Carter, because it was really just a nice, optimistic message. But also, I think it had a little bit of caution in the message about what the future might bring. So it was a nice message to put up there. Unfortunately, I don't remember the words for it. But anyway, that was nice.
But you did bring up a good point, that it was largely for us, and a way maybe of getting people to think of humanity as a group at large, that we are one people. And in fact, one of the famous shots from Voyager is looking back at the pale blue dot that's Earth, and that everything, all of our problems, all of our greatness, all of our people, everything is contained in that one tiny speck in space. And Carl Sagan really was important in sort of raising that awareness that in the bigger picture we're fairly insignificant. And this was, sort of a message in a bottle that we threw out there. And space is really big. You keep hearing that message, and it's unfathomably big. I think if one of these probes were to come into our solar system, we would never see it. We would never spot it. So, for one thing, it's moving very quickly, and it's very, very small. So, I think the benefit of it was more for humanity than actually communicating with other species.
I think if you wanted to use the message in a bottle technique as a way of sending a message to aliens, you might try to target to specific stars in our neighborhood. And with Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, the final trajectory is simply based on which last object they were doing their flyby. So like for Voyager 1, that would be Neptune. To get it to go into Neptune and to see its moon, one of its moons, then it had to go in a very strange trajectory. So instead of staying in our solar system, it actually also is going out of the plane at an angle up like that. So they're kind of arbitrary directions if you're going to send a message in a bottle. So if you wanted to really say, look at Alpha Centauri or someplace specifically, you might want to point a message there.
You got the scoop on how to communicate with the aliens, and you know.
And maybe lasers is a better way to do it. It gets there faster.